I was depressed. You know, one of those nights, I remember looking at him and I wondered, why is this boy causing me so much pain? Why? My birth experience was that of a lot of taking things for granted, I would say, and also filled with a lot of surprises. I got pregnant 3 months into my marriage, which was amazing because I've always had cysts in my ovaries, and because of that, I was pretty worried on whether or not I'll be able to get pregnant, you know, when I wanted to. So I got pregnant and it was quite good. Everyone was happy. I think the first thing I discovered when I say surprises was with regards to the morning sickness. It really wasn't morning sickness for me. It would come at any time of the day, mostly even in the evenings, you know, at nights. 3 months into my pregnancy, I started to vomit a lot, mostly at nights, and you know, I'm driving in the car, motion sickness, or someone else is driving, mostly when someone else was driving. Started to sleep a lot at work, because I'm not someone, you know, my close friends will tell you that I don't sleep. Even now, I don't sleep at night. I usually am up. But I was sleeping a lot at work. And of course, I was ill as well. But one of the disturbing things I would say that I started to notice from about 4 to 5 months was my complexion. I started to get really dark from my ears to my neck part at first. And it started to affect me, well, make me really insecure. As if that wasn't like bad enough, I started to have a lot of dandruff in my hair, and my skin. Now I was black all over, not dark now, black, and I'm a fair complexioned person normally. So I was black like from head to toe, and I had flakes mostly on my arms. I mean, the flakes started from my hair, you know, dandruff I'll just, you know, go out, and then I had dandruff all over my skin, my cloth. And then if I wear something sleeveless, I had flakes. It was like fish scales, I would say, on my arms. And it started, you know, I touch it or itch it, and it starts to, you know, fall off. And that got me into a very depressed state. I wasn't going out. I just felt like, I wondered, since it was my first pregnancy, I wondered if I would ever become normal again. And that continued. Well, didn't stop. I started to feel a pain on the right side of my tummy. I'd been feeling the pain for quite a while. I think between 3 to 4 months into the pregnancy. I wondered what it was, but I mean, for anyone who has been pregnant, there's all sorts of pains everywhere. Sometimes it would go, sometimes you just live with it until you have the child. But this was becoming pretty unbearable for me. You know, it just starts to ache me or pain me. And I didn't really know what it was, but just lived with it. Until one day at the office, I was trying to do something and I bent down and I couldn't get up anymore. The pain was right here. It was excruciating. It was really painful. And I wondered, what kind of pain is this? Why is it hurting me so much? The clinic wasn't too far from my office. So I called my younger sister. I said, I'm going to the clinic, Bumi. I'm having pain in my tummy, inside of my tummy. I got to the clinic. I mean, because I was pregnant, of course, they worried, high risk, I think that's what they called it at that time. And the first thing she said was this, I think she was talking to another doctor on the phone. It was evening. So, and usually evenings, there are not like there are no doctors around, but my gynae wasn't there, wasn't present. So anyway, I overheard them saying that it could be appendicitis. I was like, appendicitis, how is that possible in pregnancy? What's going to happen? All sort of thoughts were going through my head at the same time. I'm like, no. And I think she mentioned something like, oh, even if it's appendicitis, all we have to do is remove it. I'm like, remove it? How do you remove appendicitis with a baby in my tummy? My sister came, we were both worried. I started to really panic at that point in time. But at this point, they hadn't checked anything. We hadn't done any scans. But I was in pain. When the doctor says, what's your pain level between 1 and 10? Mine was literally a 9. I couldn't stand up. I just preferred to bend, hold it and bend. In fact, it felt like if I move, whatever motion that I sort of do with my body at that time was affecting the pain. So they called an ambulance to move me from the clinic in Lekki to the clinic on the mainland, which was a bigger clinic. Ambulance. What's going on? Why can't my sister drive me in my car? Is there something these guys are not telling me? I entered the ambulance. I didn't lie down. I just sat down on it and I was looking around, like in case anything wanted to happen. It wasn't going to catch me unawares. My sister was driving right behind us. The ambulance moves pretty fast, passes all the traffic lights, doesn't stop. And she was doing that too behind me. And I'm like, you need to stop. I kept talking to my sister because I could see her through the ambulance. You need to stop moving this fast. Everything was just, as the ambulance was moving, the pain was increasing even more. We got to the clinic on the mainland pretty fast. They said my gynae came that night actually. He checked it and he said the worst it could be is appendicitis. And as he said, they will remove it. I didn't sleep all night. First of all, I was in pain, so I couldn't lie down. So I sort of squeezed my body together on the bed. I didn't sleep through the night because I just wondered, what is this? Why is this so painful? First thing in the morning, about 9, the labs opened. They did a scan. It was fibroids. Fibroids. I've never had fibroids my whole life. Quite a number of people have fibroids. I know that. It's not like it's such a bad thing. But I think during pregnancy, it starts to maybe show itself, get enlarged, or do whatever it is that it decides to do at that time. So I said, what caused it? How come I have fibroids? I've never had fibroids. I've always had cysts in my ovaries. Well, they said they don't know. It's one of the hormonal things that happens in pregnancies. But at least I knew I wasn't going to have to do a surgery or anything. But the pain was there. It was really bad. All my life, I'd never experienced pain in that ramification. It was really bad. And for, I think so they just put me on pain meds. I was praying, of course, concerning my baby. And that was it. When I left the hospital, I think 3 or 4 days later, one of my anxieties was really about, will it come back? Why did it even come in the first place? Why did the pain, what sort of caused it to pain me that much? I called so many people. Coincidentally, I've had a lot of friends that had babies, but it's like they never said anything really. It was just a more, everybody rejoices. So I lived with that anxiety really at that time, prayed consistently, and well, I went abroad. I did to have the baby. And then we did the scan again. The fibroids were still there, but, wasn't bothering me. Babies are usually, I would say 37 to 40 weeks. They'll say the baby can now come out. So I was in my 36 weeks of being pregnant. And middle of the night, I just started to feel, like menstrual pain, 36 weeks. And I wondered that this can't be labor because, I wanted to give it a little bit of more time. I was hoping, and this was about maybe 3 a.m. in the middle of the night when I first got up. I went to all the websites trying to read about what it feels like when you're in labor, the sort of things to experience, and everything like that. This pain wasn't as bad as that fibroid pain. That fibroid pain was the worst pain I'd ever experienced in my life. This was like menstrual pain in my back, cramps, and everything, my front. I will try to sleep, but the pain will come back again. So I started to wonder at that point, what could this be? I called my sister, who's a doctor, and she said, well, it could actually be labor pain. I said, but I'm just 36 weeks plus weeks of being pregnant. And she said, well, it doesn't matter. It could come at any time, really. So I called a couple of friends of mine, and they're like, don't go to the hospital. If you go and it's false contractions, you're going to have to pay a lot of money or, pay, and of course, I didn't want to pay anything. So I just waited at home, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5. What I did really was when the pain was becoming pretty unbearable, I just went into the shower and put my hands on the wall and just stayed there. And I think that helped me a whole lot. About 6 o'clock, I called Uber to take me to the clinic. At this point, it had gotten really bad. It did feel like there were contractions at that point. I got to the clinic where I normally would see my gynae. And they said the Uber had dropped me, had left, because in my head, that's where I was going to have the baby. So I couldn't get up. I couldn't stand up straight anymore. It was beginning to really hurt. So they said, you're in the wrong place. You're not supposed to deliver here. You're supposed to go somewhere else. The Uber had gone. I was in pain. I was literally sitting on the floor of the hospital. They said to call the ambulance. A few friends were like, ambulance, they charge a lot of money. They won't even tell you how much it is. They will just carry you and send you the bill later. I'm like, no. I'm not going on the ambulance. I tried to call the same Uber guy to come back to pick me. He didn't pick up, of course, because I'm sure when I was in the car, all my pain and everything must have bothered him a little bit, so he didn't come back to pick me up. I went out of the clinic because they kept insisting that I went on the ambulance. They just felt like I was putting my life at risk. I refused. I went out of the hospital, like I was outside on the road, and I was lying down on the floor. I was with my mom because I was in a lot of pain. The ambulance picked me up because the pain got really bad. I got to the clinic. As I got to the hospital now, the big hospital, they checked me in. I got in, my doctor was there already. No, my doctor was not around. He had traveled because that wasn't my due date. So they called someone else, and they said, oh, check, is it false contractions? By the time she put her hand in, I had dilated 10 centimeters. Get ready to push. Within 15 to 20 minutes, my son was out. It was amazing. It was different from all the stories I'd ever heard. I was excited. I was happy. I was like, oh, I'm ready to go home. All the pain had just gone. My mom kept telling me, Lola, you need to relax. You've just pushed out, a whole baby out of you. I'm like, no, I'm good, I'm cool. I was calling everyone, telling them my testimony. Wow, Hebrew woman, I pushed out within 15 minutes, blah, 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 like that. I told them they wanted to take my baby away from me, just to keep him so I could rest. I said, no, they should bring him to me. So they brought him. My mom kept encouraging me, send him back. You have all your life with this child, send him back to the nurses. So I said, no, I wanted to keep him. I left the hospital after 2 days. Everything was great and fine. I go home, I dropped him. It was my anniversary. So I went out with my husband. We were on the road when I just fell. And I didn't faint or anything. I was just weak. I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. And I wondered, what is this? So he got me some water. I just took a couple of breaths. I felt better, but I was weak. We took Uber. We went back home. I called the clinic. I called the doctor, and he said, have you been taking your painkillers? I said, what painkillers? He said, have you been taking any vitamins at all since you left the hospital? I said, no. He said, why? I said, because I didn't feel any pain and I didn't feel like I needed to. Of course, I was having those contraction pains that you have after you've had a baby, but it wasn't as bad. Anyway, I had to be put on bed rest for about 2 to 3 days. I couldn't get up or do anything because I was really weak. And now I started to battle with feeding my child, breastfeeding my child. I wanted to. All through the pregnancy, I'd attended antenatal classes, which emphasized the benefits of, feeding your child breast milk. So it was like one of the worst things that ever happened to me in my life when I realized I had no milk. How is it possible not to have milk? I had no milk. I saw a lactation consultant. They did everything. Pressed, just droplets. I bought the best set of pumps I could find because a few friends, advised that if you pump, tiny, nothing. What's going on? I called pastors, 2 pastors, to pray with me, to agree with me that I will have milk to feed my child. I couldn't breastfeed. It bothered me. I really wanted to. I'm putting into consideration that my son came really early. It just wasn't advisable to give him, I won't call it artificial milk now, but powdered milk, Similac and the rest of them. Right when I was battling with that, my son developed, in fact, before I even knew it was colic, because as I said, maybe I should have done some research in that regards, but I didn't think there was anything really to know after the baby comes. Mine was pregnancy. So I just realized that my baby wasn't sleeping at night. He'll get up and he'll start crying. He probably could cry from like 2 a.m. till morning. I used to sort of put him on my chest once he starts to cry, and we tried to sleep off like that, but it didn't work. I went to the hospital, at this time a pediatric clinic. A doctor told me it's colic. What's colic? What does that mean? I started to read about it, and they said it could be worse in children that take milk, artificial milk, not breast milk. So, it all went back to the fact that, I felt at that point, my son is having to go through all this because I don't have breast milk to provide for him. It made me, at that point, feel so inadequate. It was a terrible feeling. And then it continued like that. At nights, he won't sleep. He'll cry through the nights. And then I wasn't even giving him water. I was giving him formula, but not water. Because they said too, at that point, don't give water. So it was getting worse by the day. And every morning, I'll wake up, I'll go to the hospital. I think it was $48 to meet up with the doctor. Every morning at around 6:30 or 7, because we won't sleep through the night. I'll go again. The doctor was tired of seeing me. I must have seen him maybe 7 times. And then he said, if it will make you feel better, when he's crying, you too cry. The Chinese doctor, I was so upset with him at that point, but he never stopped. It was bad. My son had a bad case of colic. I wasn't prepared for any of that. I didn't know. And at that point, it was even worse because I thought it was my fault. I just wondered, there was nothing, the pap bottles I was taking every morning was this big. Morning, afternoon, night. I bought all sorts of things. I just don't remember the names of the sachets of powders that I used to drink at that time. Because I felt like if I had milk to give to him, then he won't have to take formula. And then there won't be too much gas in his tummy. I used a lot of different things for him. I bought a lot of things from Amazon. So many things, but they never worked. It wasn't getting any better. I did all sorts of things. They sent me a agbo from Nigeria. I grinded, I can't remember the name of the tablets. It was like tablets. I grinded it, added a little bit of water. It didn't work. We didn't sleep. I was depressed. You know, one of those nights, I remember looking at him and I wondered, why is this boy causing me so much pain? Why? But then again, I wondered, when is this going to stop? How? What I had read was after 3 months, it would stop. I don't really remember how it faded away because a lot of things you read, you know, will tell you, you just will wake up and it won't be there anymore. But I know that I came back to Nigeria and, you know, he wasn't having those tummy pains anymore. For my second pregnancy, I worried if I was going to have those fibroid pains, but I didn't throughout the pregnancy. I must have spotted once or twice, went to the hospital, it was nothing to worry about. The labor was something else. It was something else. You know when you have the thought of, oh, I'm an Hebrew woman, I'll push, and in 10 minutes my baby will come out. On my way to the hospital, 36 weeks again. I don't know why. My mom said maybe I can't carry my children past 36 weeks for God knows whatever reason. But I mean, I thank God that at least they get to 36 weeks. 36 weeks again, I went to the clinic to check antenatal. She told me, you're already dilating. You need to sit at home, not do anything, so that the baby can at least, you know, enter 37 weeks. I said, okay, no problem. I tried to do that, but there was no, you know, I just still felt those contractions. I mean, now I knew what they were. So I just lay there, and after some point in time, I just called a friend of mine who was also in that vicinity at that time, and I told her, please come and take me to the hospital. I think I'm in labor. I think I'm having contractions. I got to the hospital. On our way to the hospital, I started throwing up from inside the car. I got to the hospital. I was throwing up continuously. From inside the car, I got down, got on a wheelchair. They were taking me upstairs. With my first child, after about 3 to 4 months, when I was battling with all the colic, I started to come back to normal. The flakes had stopped falling off my skin, but there were still like scales on it. And then it got better. My second child, she's 2 years and a couple of months, and I'm still not back to my true complexion. So it's just one of these things that, I mean, I've spoken to quite a number of, what are they called now? Skin doctors. And they mentioned it will go with time. Don't do anything, you know, just leave it and it will all come back to normal. So I'm just thoroughly grateful to God that after all said and done, you know, the experience I had at that time, I can look back now and just be absolutely grateful that I was given that opportunity, you know, to have those kids, to have my children. And they're just great, healthy, fine. And, you know, it's also having experienced that, one can also share with other people so they know what to expect, you know, especially with regards to the postnatal depression, because it's real. And, you know, anything could have happened at that time. My mom was with me, but it wasn't helping me. You know, even with my mom being with me, I was still sad. I remember calling a friend of mine and I started crying. She didn't say stop crying, she said let it out. said, let it out, let it out. I remember her saying that, and I thought, this girl is not even trying to stop me from crying. She said, because I experienced the same thing. Every day it will get better. That's what she said. Every day it will get better. And so far, that has been my story. Every day it's gotten better.